Creativity in the Age of COVID with Dr. Judi Bloom and Richard Skipper. It's the only program in which therapy and entertainment come together to show everyone not only how to cope in the age of COVID, but how to be creatively productive through it all. And now, Dr. Judi Bloom and Richard Skipper.
And here we are, Dr. Bloom. It's good to see you again.
Great to see you, Richard. How are things?
Things are great, but it feels like it's been forever since I saw you. I mean, it seems like every hour on the hour, we're in a new news cycle. Something bizarre and wonderful is going on in the world. I was looking at this promo. Of course, we started this show in September, and your wish, as well as mine, is that on the other side, we're going to be taking a little summer hiatus. Right. And when we come back in the fall, hopefully maskless. We've both been vaccinated. And hopefully we won't have to use that promo anymore. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
I can't wait.
I'm looking forward to it. Yesterday, it was announced that the Broadway theaters are opening on September 14th. And of course, there's going to be a rollout because of rehearsals and getting the theaters ready and everything. But Broadway tickets went on sale today for the first time in over a year. I mean, when was the last time that you were in New York?
About 2 years ago. Well, prior to COVID, so 2.5 maybe at this point. But I, generally we go in at least twice a year into New York. So I miss it. I miss, I grew up there. I miss New York. And I can't wait to buy tickets to a couple of Broadway shows so I have a reason to go to the city, And I want everybody to start making plans, get out of your bubble, It's time to face all those fears and put them behind you. That's providing you've got the vaccine. And I'm not saying you go out maskless. You still wear your mask, got to protect everybody. But it's time to get out there and start enjoying life again. Make plans.
Well, the goal is that all the Broadway theaters are going to open at 100% capacity. And in order to do that, you got to buy those tickets. You got to let these Broadway producers and these Broadway actors and all the people that involves knows that we're coming back bigger and brighter than ever. I'm going to put out a little plug, if I may. I don't get any endorsement on this, but playbill.com has a Return to Broadway pledge that you go on. It's got all the shows that are coming back to Broadway that you pledge to buying a ticket to one or two of the shows. And I think that's a great, great idea.
I intend to do it as soon as we get off the air here.
Well, I am so excited about today's show because the three guests that we have today are from three different areas of my life. Our first guest, Lisa Dascoli, is a real, true, honest-to-God, physical friend of mine. We have broken bread together. She was the stage manager for my show here in New York. She is a prolific actress herself. She is a director. She also, I asked Lisa, and I'm going to bring her on right now, to come on the show because I was reading about New Jersey theater coming back. Mm-hmm. And I see this picture. Forgive me for what I'm about to say, Lisa. And I said, and it was from behind. And I said, that looks like Lisa Dascoli. And because we know each other so well. And underneath it said Lisa Dascoli. And there she was rehearsing for an outdoor production that's about to open of Jesus Christ Superstar. And this is not your first time with Jesus, I might say, Lisa, because you directed a production of Jesus Christ Superstar, brilliantly, I might add, that I saw a few years ago. Welcome to the show, Dr. Bloom, Lisa Dascoli.
Hello, Dr. Bloom.
Really nice to meet you, Lisa.
As well.
So, Lisa, I want to start where we start with most of our guests. We are right now on this precipice. We are going through, hopefully, the final stages of what COVID has done to us as far as theater in the past year. And when did you first start prepping to get ready so that you would be ready when everything was available to bring us back this summer?
Well, what happened was that a year ago, I was slated to direct for the Theater League of Clifton. We were going to do Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. And then everything comes to a screeching halt. And they said, okay, well, let's put it off for a bit. Okay, fine. Spring came, summer came, fall came, winter. And they said, we really want to do something. And why don't we just try to do something outdoors? And we went through a myriad of different titles, and they said, a full length show is not going to work outdoors. Because they have access to a city park. So I said, well, why don't we do a sung through musical? And amongst that, on my list was Superstar, and they thought that would be a good idea. So what it is that we're going to be doing is, again, we're doing basically a concert version, which simply means that I'm going to scale down some of the dance and some of the props and whatnot. But I imagined it as a 1970s rock concert. The lights, they're going to have a light show and everything of that nature. But what I can tell you, and it's funny because I know the picture you're talking about was at the auditions.
Wow. Okay.
And I was amazed at people. They were almost, I said to a friend of mine, it reminded me of a person who's been on a diet for a very long time, let loose in a pastry shop. Everybody was all, and we had our first real honest to God rehearsal last night. And I can't tell you the energy that was in the room. I cannot explain to you the enthusiasm from these people and I want to get out there again. I just want to do this again. It was an amazing. I personally did not sleep last night, and that is because my brain, my creative brain, was on so much overload. I truly felt like an ADD kid. I understood what that felt like for the first time in my life. Just the explosion of all the creativity coming out of me. Yeah. And to answer your question, how are we going to do this? Well, we have an outdoor shell, and the audience will be outside. They get to bring their own chairs and blankies and to sit outside. And I'm going to have risers. So the cast is going to be seated on risers. And at this point, I'm very, very on top of what all of the procedures are, what all of the precautions are. We can now be 3 feet apart. And most of us are vaccinated. So that kind of makes it a little easier.
Well, let me ask you a question on that. When you held the auditions for this, was one of the requirements that everyone had to be vaccinated?
No, I know we could not ask.
Okay.
We could not ask, and we didn't ask that question. What we did was I very purposefully put distance between myself and the auditioners. My stage manager, my musical director, and the producer and I, we all remained masked. And I would say to the auditioner coming in, you may take off your mask so you can feel comfortable. We're going to remain masked. And that's so they could feel comfortable. I mean, if you've ever tried to sing with the masks on, that's a party unto itself.
I can't even imagine.
Yes.
Dr. Bloom, do you have any questions that you want to ask before I bring our next guest on? And I want to let everyone know that in the description of this particular show on YouTube will be details on how you can get tickets for this production. So we'll get the word out that way as well. Any questions from you, Dr. Bloom?
How are you handling the performers? Are they also going to be socially distanced on stage, or have they all just simply been, at this point said they've been vaccinated, so it doesn't really matter? Are you seeing hesitancy among the performers? What are you seeing?
Well, again, last night's rehearsal, everybody was in chairs and they all kind of, they distanced themselves. They remained masked singing. And Again, we'll be outdoors. So the risers, my process was the risers are going to give us extra space and distance amongst each other. And what I'm hoping is by the time June hits, most of the people that I've encountered have been fully vaccinated. So they're getting more comfortable. Again, we're not going to be doing a lot of moving back and forth. That's a big deal right there. And because of the openness of the space, I think I've been very respectful and on top of it. Please tell me if there's anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. Please open your mouth and tell me, because if I'm doing anything that makes you, if you need anything, please let me know. And we take mask breaks, like every 45 minutes. All right, let's stop. Let's all go outside for a minute and breathe, and then we come back in. So it's a different way of thinking about it, but if there's a cooperative attitude is what I'm noticing.
Great.
Sounds good. Now, our next guest that we're bringing on is an actor. He's a singer. I subscribe to his YouTube channel. We also know each other through LinkedIn. I've been following him for some time, and he has been working on film. I think you worked on a project this afternoon, Ken, before today's show. And so I asked him to join us today as well, and I'm thrilled he's here. So Ken, Dr. Bloom, Lisa Dascoli, Ken Holmes.
Nice to meet you, Ken.
Meet you. I want to start with the same place that I started with Lisa. Well, let's actually go with what was happening career-wise for you when everything shut down last year.
Well, I was actually working on one of the last productions to shut down. I live in New York, and I was working on the show Pose, which was actually one of the last productions to shut down before quarantine had to happen. And I was working a lot. I was working pretty much every other day on various shows. And I remember just sitting with the other people, the other actors on the show, and just being like, well, what's going to happen tomorrow? You know, none of us really knew. We knew that a lot of productions were shutting down, that we were working on possibly the last show we could be working on for a while. And there was just this weird feeling like, what's going to happen tomorrow? We don't know. We don't know where life is going, where our careers are going, where anything is going. And it was this weird feeling of gratitude because we were working. But also, it was a bit ominous too, because we didn't know what was going to happen next. But yeah, that's where I was before quarantine happened. And before that, I was just working as much as I could, just different movies, different shows. And then COVID hit, and that's when I really got into writing more, because I'm a writer as well. And I just figured that I'm going to use this time to work on my own material, because prior to that, I do filmmaking, I do screenwriting, but like my main focus was acting. And now it's like, well, I can't really be on set anymore. So that's when I just started brainstorming, what other kind of projects can I do? And because we couldn't be on set, I just, myself and two other writers, one of whom is my father, who is also a writer.
Oh, wow.
We came up with an idea to do a web series that's actors from all over the world, and they just submit improvised monologues. We call it Zoom Shorts. And I'm still doing it. Like, even though we can be on set again, it's still just been such a blast to do. So I don't know. I just started figuring out ways to get creative in a different way. And that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm still kind of in the headspace. I'm playing it safe, but I'm still on set, but not as much as I was prior to the shutdown.
And you were working all the time. I took a look at your resume. You've been on every television or show and movie I think I've seen in the last 10 years.
Yeah. Great. How long ago was it that you actually were on set again for the first time after the hiatus that was forced upon you?
It was like the day before quarantine. It was the day before when there was literally a shutdown. There was a shutdown.
I mean, when did you go back to work? How long were you?
When did I go back to work?
Yeah.
I went back to work. What was it? I think it was as soon as I could. Like as soon as production started up again, I came right back. I was worried. Because this is my only income, like I don't do anything else. But I needed to make money, and I also just missed being on set. I was worried, but to my relief, everybody is really safe. I actually feel like aside from being at home, set it seems like the safest place to be. We get tested all the time. I get tested at least twice before work, and then I get tested the day of. And yeah, and if anybody is tested positive, we get shut down. That hasn't happened to any sets I've been on, but I've heard of it happening.
Now, I have a friend. Go ahead, Dr. Bloom. I'm sorry.
Are you finding that most of the other people on the set have been vaccinated at this point? I'm sure people talk about it among themselves.
I think most have, yeah.
Now, I have a friend in Georgia working with Tyler Perry, and it's worked into their contracts and everything that they are tested twice a week on set, and that is something that is provided by the studio. Yes. Is that happening on the sets that you're working on as well?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, they're paid tests. We get tested. The productions I've worked on, I get tested twice before the shoot, and then I get tested the day of, right before as well. And obviously, if it was ongoing work, that would be, so far I've just been doing like guest spots here and there. So it hasn't been, it's just per production. But yeah, they've been very thorough. And obviously masks all the time, except when rolling. Some productions are current day in the COVID world, and in those cases, we're wearing masks while rolling too.
Great. Anything you'd like to say, Dr. Bloom, before I bring our next guest on?
No, I think we're ready for the next person.
Okay, great. I am so excited. First of all, let's all say a collective happy birthday to Charlotte, who just had a birthday yesterday.
All right.
Charlotte and I, we met through Facebook. Charlotte has an incredible site, a page on Facebook that I recommend to everybody called Sing Out. And it's for singers, it's for other artists, it's for everyone in the entertainment industry. And that's how I got to know Charlotte. She also is a science writer, which is something we're going to talk about. And because of the pandemic, it's forced her, may I say, to step out of her shell and onto a stage, because she's about to make her cabaret debut, which I applaud her through Metro Zoom, Bernie Firshpan and Joanna. So we'll give a shout out to them. Welcome to the show, Charlotte.
Thank you for having me. This whole series is such a brilliant idea because creativity is so important. I just applaud you and Dr. Bloom so much for doing it.
Well, thank you. I want to ask you, how does one go from being a science writer to being so involved in the entertainment industry as well?
Because someone was always a ham. Actually, I've always had like both these sides, but they merged better before. Now they're a little bit more disparate. But I wrote my first book, The Woman's Heart book, before, right at the time where the world was becoming aware of heart disease in women. And I had one of the first books on the market out about it. And that ended up propelling me really into a speaking career. And I was a national speaker for several years, although I always, on heart disease, I always had this, not the secret desire to open my shows singing "You've Got to Have Heart," which I never did, which would have been so good. And I know it would have been so good, but I never did. So I guess I've just sort of been a closet performer and gradually done more and more of it. And when the pandemic hit, much to my shock, I found myself with a lot of opportunities to get out on a stage, even if it was only a streaming one, and then make an eventual transition.
Now, you also have a book that came out this past year,
Right.
Almost a year in July.
Wow. Yeah.
On COVID.
Yeah.
When, where, and how did you sit down to write a book about COVID, and what surprised you the most about what you learned about COVID, and especially with everything that you know about COVID? What are some of the things that you're seeing within our world of entertainment that people are truly adhering to, and what are some of the things that frighten you?
Okay, well, first, I was obsessed. I was obsessed since last December 2019, because I was obsessed and horrified with reading about China and what was going on there. And my mother's older sister contracted Spanish flu when she was 15 in Brooklyn. And she spent her life paralyzed.
Wow.
Because of it. She, unfortunately, this is before the ADA law. She lived her life in a back bedroom, thanks to the Spanish flu. And never in my life in a million years did I ever imagine that the Spanish flu would ever be, I mean, it shaped my childhood, but I never expected it would be relevant to my life today. I mean, I was one of those people that thought, and I had covered Zika as a science writer, and Zika came to Miami, and it was bad, but it left, you know? So I never dreamt that this wouldn't be the same thing, to have everything shut down. I live in South Beach. Overnight, everything was shuttered. New York, I still remember seeing, oh my gosh, a video of Grand Central Station last year at New Year's, a video that went viral that, you know, I used to go to New York all the time when I was a kid, walking up Grand Central Station, walking up the stairs. So when you're on the street was the biggest thrill of my life. I never imagined all of that. But I was fascinated listening to Lisa talk about the precautions and about the production that she's doing. I hope she and everyone else joins my Sing Out group, because you can promote, you know, because it's for fans and performers. And I just want people to promote things like the show, like Jesus Christ Superstar that you're doing, because the way you're doing it sounds absolutely brilliant.
Thank you. I will.
Absolutely. And I guess my biggest concerns are the darn variants. You know, that's, you know, I don't trust this virus. I think it has tricks up its sleeve. And that's,
I think you're right.
you know, and those are, that not so much what people are doing, but that's my biggest concern.
Well, I have a question for you, and I hope I'm going to hear the answer that I want to hear. I may not. But, what would you say to everyone who's watching now, either live or later on, about vaccinations?
Oh God, get them.
Right
Please,
answer. Thank you.
Please. My aunt there were no vaccines when my aunt had the Spanish flu. I'm a child of the polio generation.
Yes.
You know, that's my viewpoint. I mean, you know, I do have a few, you know, there is a small number of people that need to be concerned about the vaccines, but that's a very small number of people. And the number of people spreading misinformation about it and poisoning people's minds about it is much more larger. So I applaud everything that's going on. I applaud Richard. I applaud the vaccines the vaccine being done on Broadway and everything. And I think that's our only route to really get out of it.
Charlotte, I'm wondering what you found doing the research around COVID that you think is still really relevant today and going forward for people to keep in mind. And if you found any differences between men and women when you were doing your research.
In what way, in terms of men?
In the way that COVID affects affects people.
It affects men significantly more.
Men more.
It affects, they're not sure, with everything that you say about COVID, it always starts and begins with, they're not sure why, because it's a brand new virus.
Right.
But men do tend to get it worse. The other thing, when you said what I was worried about is that the long haul COVID, the idea that, people don't get over it that quickly.
Right.
Which I think they're still teasing gender differences out about it.
Mm-hmm. Were you trained as in the sciences? Was that your original?
That's another story, but I wanted to be Lois Lane, and be the girl, and be the girl reporter, and that's what I became in a bunch of newspapers in Connecticut. And then I ended up being a regular contributor at the New York Times. And then I ended up needing open heart surgery.
Wow.
So what happened was I had open heart surgery at the Cleveland Clinic. My cousin was head of medical research at the time. I had Cleveland Clinic credentials, New York Times credentials, and I ended up getting an agent and writing my first book. And that's how that came about. So I learned cardiology at first, kind of sort of by the seat of my pants. And then I got to be, it's like speaking another language. You get to be very good at it. And I found very comfortable the role of translating between experts, and like Richard was saying before we went on, we're sitting and having a conversation over coffee. That was what I always kept in my mind about when I was talking to my reader. What would I tell my reader if my reader came over for a cup of coffee and said, "Oh my God, I just got diagnosed with atrial septal defect," which is what I had, or atrial fibrillation, or my husband had a heart attack. What would I say over a cup of coffee? And that's always been kind of my mantra. And over time, I got to know a lot more. So right now, even with all the other things that I do, I sit down every month with a doctor and write a 3,000 word newsletter on cardiology.
Wow.
So, I keep my hand in, so to speak.
Good for you. Lisa, I have a question for you, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot with this. But a few moments ago, you said that you can't ask people if they've been vaccinated when they audition. And I know that that's not the case with equity. I don't understand why you're not able to make that a requirement when people come in to audition for you.
I don't know why either. Maybe because we are not equity. But I know that the producers of the theater company said to me that they couldn't ask that because maybe because we're not equity, that it was a HIPAA law thing. That's what I assume. But when we certainly took temperatures, but that is what I was told. I accepted that at face value. But most people are so damn proud that they volunteer the information anyway. So it's really not, it's not proven to be an issue. Believe me when I tell you, I'm fully vaccinated.
Yeah. Well, Ken, what about you on the sets that you're on? Does everyone have to be vaccinated in order to be on the sets?
No, you don't. Yeah, it's not a requirement. I think it probably will be. There are people talking about, will it be a requirement at some point? It's definitely a topic of discussion. And my guess, and a lot of other people's guesses, is that it will be a requirement eventually. But as of right now, no.
Because I'm hearing, one second, Lisa, but I'm hearing that as far as audiences coming back to Broadway, the Broadway League right now are having discussions on whether or not the entire audience has to be vaccinated in order to get a ticket to go see a Broadway show. Lisa?
I was just going to say that if my boyfriend works on Broadway. He is stagehand. His son also, and his son recently did an industrial. I think it was for IBM. Anyway, they had a test every day, because I remember Anthony saying that every day that they went, first he had a quarantine for the week before the job started, and then every day going in, he was tested.
And
that may be the future where it's kind of, an either or. You either get tested every day, or you show that you've had a vaccine.
I'd rather get the vaccine. I would rather get the vaccine.
It's sort of like what travel is right now. I know we've been making travel plans, for this summer, because I can't wait to get out there again.
Yes.
And
you're taking with you.
Yeah, and obviously only to places where Americans can travel, where it's considered safe to travel. But that's what we're finding everywhere is that you either have to show proof of vaccination, or take a test within 72 hours of getting there, and then have your results and all that. So I think that's probably going to be the future in a lot of industries. Actually, it's going to be that kind of either or situation.
Now, Charlotte, you live in Florida, and
Right.
a lot, and people are hearing things in the news. Some are positive, some are not. I saw a post yesterday from an artistic director of a theater defending the choices that she's been making.
I know. I saw that too.
Yes, you saw that as well. I don't want to out her now, but I want to ask you, have you been going to live events in Florida? And if so, do you feel totally safe going? And how long have you been going, if you have been?
I didn't set foot indoors anywhere that there were other people until I was fully vaccinated. So some of the productions, there haven't been a lot of productions. I think there was a perception that there's been more than there have been, because there really have not been a lot of productions. And I know where you're speaking of, and there were a couple there that when that started, I didn't go to personally.
Well, I think a lot of the discussion there, and I understand what's going on as a member of Actors Equity. I understand that a lot of theaters are having to make the choice, if they want to keep their doors open, to go non-equity this summer. Right. And there's a lot of controversy going on with that. And so as a union paying dues member, I see both sides of the coin. And I want to be as open-minded as I possibly can, especially for the desire and need for so many people to go back to work. Do you have any thoughts on that issue?
Well, it's interesting because there was one equity production here that involved 5 people and no audience. And they put on a production of The Belle of Amherst. And they had, I think, 6 people in the theater. They did it in the theater, no audience. They had and I wrote about it. They had 39 pages of protocol from Actors Equity, and they spent upwards of like $20,000 to do ventilation and everything along those lines. And that's the lengths they went to about 6 weeks ago to do a streaming production. I'm torn too, because in my 2 roles, I've had 2 roles since the pandemic: arts and culture cheerleader, and science writer about the pandemic. And sometimes they clashed. I mean, I got upbraided on Sing Out once. somebody was leaving Sing Out because they couldn't stand how many people, all the people that were promoting things. Because, one thing that I wouldn't get near until I was fully vaccinated was karaoke in a bar. I mean, the CDC put that next to skydiving without a parachute. I mean, never did I think
before
that.
the pandemic, everyone.
I mean, never did I think, yeah, right.
Yes.
I never thought I was doing something risky until the pandemic. But I would post those. I would let people post those because that was my other role. So, I see both sides too, and I've been torn. In terms of personally, we've been extremely lucky here in Miami Beach because we had outdoor venues. We had a venue that sounded a lot like what Lisa's talking about with like an amphitheater. That's our North Beach band shell. That they ended up starting to renovate in 2015, and they opened up right before the pandemic with new sound and new lighting, bless their hearts. The hottest venue in town was the Miami Beach Botanical Garden. Who knew? So I've had those options, but I feel the same way you do, Richard. I've totally torn about what's going on, because some of my performer friends did perform at the venue we're mentioning a couple of months ago, and I promoted them to the skies because I understand what was going on, but it's not an easy dilemma.
Well, I think that one of the things that we're dealing with, that we are all grappling with right now, beyond the pandemic and everything, is news sources and how we are getting our news. I was watching the news last night and I had to change it because it was all about this might happen. It was my opinion on this instead of giving us the news about what is known. And right. I think that people are getting their news from various sources right now. That's a whole other show to deal with. But I want to ask each of you, because we are starting to reemerge out of this cocoon that we've been in, people are frustrated. People are frustrated because they've been out of work. Some people are being proactive, as all of you are, and getting out there and starting to do things again. What is the overall, and I'll start with you, Lisa, what is the overall response that you're getting from people? Are people welcoming this production with open arms, or are you getting any backlash on coming back? Some people still think that we're coming back too soon. And it sounds to me like, based on everything you've said, that you're following all the right protocols in order to get back on the boards.
We are following all the protocols. And I really found the people have embraced it. I had an incredible amount of auditioners. People have been asking me about this production. When is it happening? When is it happening? The press on it has been just amazing. We've been getting so much because people are excited that it's happening. Was the onus on me to figure out how to do it? And it's that little nag in the back of my head. I'm taking all the precautions, right? I'm not going to hurt anybody, am I? Yes. So that does weigh on my mind, but I think people are excited to see live theater. I always knew I loved live theater, but I never understood how much it meant to people.
Absolutely. And what about you, Ken, going back to work and working on film? What's the overall response that you're getting from those in your circle?
It's really mixed. Some people are just excited to be back at work. Some people, there are actually a lot of people who aren't going back to work until they get vaccinated, or even after they get vaccinated, because they're just too worried. It's just too big of a gamble, and life is more important. And I totally understand that viewpoint. there are productions that have like, hundreds of extras and then the crew and then the cast. And it's like, I look at that and I do understand the concern. Most of the stuff I've personally been working on has been a lot smaller. I haven't been on a set with hundreds of people yet. But yeah, that's been a concern for a lot of people in my circle. And yeah, no, it's mixed. There's not really one general consensus. It's a mixed response. I am, I'm not currently doing theater, which I think is the major concern because that's getting an audience involved with what I'm doing. It's really just the people who signed up for the job who are putting themselves at risk. So it's a little bit different.
And Charlotte, I want to shift gears with you for a moment, because we are now we're finding new ways of getting our art out to people. And I know that you're going to be doing a show. If I'm not mistaken, isn't Gretchen Reinhagen your director?
Yes, she is, and I'm so excited.
And she was our guest a couple of months ago. So, full circle here. Are you going to be doing the show virtually, or are you going to be?
No, well, this is what happened. When the pandemic started, I kind of looked at what I was doing as an opportunity because I was very fortunate. It didn't kill my income stream. Okay. The housing crisis of like 2007 and 2008 killed my income stream. But this didn't. So I sort of had kind of the luxury to look at what I was doing as an opportunity and not what a lot of my friends were going through in hospitality and entertainment. And I decided I was doing a sort of like hobbies like photography and art and music. And I decided to focus on the music. And I found, because of Sing Out, I found some incredible open mics, particularly Natasha Castillo's Spotlight on You. Because ironically, I was supposed to go to New York in April of 2020 for another writers conference. I go every year to the American Society of Journalists and Authors, and I had made plans to do an open mic. I was so excited I was going to meet her, and boom, pandemic. But she ended up pivoting and having her open mic weekly. So these people who I would have met and sang with once, I've sang with like 52 times probably. And we're all friends. And I got to be friends with Lenny Watts and Sue Mizuki and, and everyone. And my friend Stu sent me Lisa's Sue's book, Do You Want to Be a Cabaret Singer? And I looked at it and I said, well, I'm not going to be that. I mean, we just have a pandemic. I live in Florida and hello, so not relevant. But I ended up meeting all these people. And among them, I met Bernie at Metropolitan Zoom. So I started doing a lot of open mics and things like that. And Bernie did a virtual 24-hour virtual variety show back in November, which kind of put Metropolitan Zoom on my radar. Now, he did a 24-hour cabaret show a couple of years ago. I couldn't go. I lived in Florida. My friend in New York went. So I did it. And I was, and then one day I saw that he was doing this contest to win a full production at Studio A in New York. And I conveniently didn't see the part which said New York area performers. And I said, well, to myself, if you win this, which I didn't think in a million years I would, you have to go to New York and do a show. And then I said, oh yeah, okay, I'll do that. I entered and I was one of the two winners. So now I get to do all the things I've dreamt of doing, like hire a director and take all the class, give myself permission to take all the classes I want. And, rehearse. And that's how that came about. But it was very definitely, you cannot do it virtually. You got to do it in New York. So I picked a day.
Where are you going to perform? Where's it going to be?
It's going to be, well, it's not going to be in person. It's going to be streamed
okay.
over Metropolitan Zoom.
Now I have a comment.
Time anyway.
I have a comment for you, Charlotte. It says, geez, good luck with that, director. Thank you, Richard. Love working with Charlotte. That skydiving line is going in the show. And I will say, Lisa and I have a very dear friend that I'd love to get on this show if we can figure out the logistics of getting her here. And that's our friend Peggy Eason, who was born blind. She's a phenomenal singer. And she, when she turned 65, I think it was, she jumped out of an airplane. So she did.
Oh, God love her. That's not what I'm doing. I do this for the adrenaline kick instead of this is my version of jumping out of an airplane.
Any comments, Judi?
I think it's really exciting that, Charlotte, you've been able to pivot in so many different directions constantly, which is great. And it's a great inspiration, I think, for other people, to think outside the box. We can do many things with our talents and our lives and just exploring things and trying things, and they work or they don't work. It doesn't matter. Just do it. Just get out there and have fun. I mean, that really
absolutely.
is.
I have a friend, Jackie Dishner, who started a Facebook group called Creative Coping for Women during the pandemic. Right. And just watching that Facebook group evolve, because people were depressed. I mean, a lot of creatives, there were, I think, two major roadblocks, or three. One, I mean, if you put income aside, you have just sort of the depression of my reason to be in front of a camera or be an artist. And my friend Sid Daniels is watching. He's a wonderful artist. He had just had an in-person exhibit, and then there's no more in-person exhibits. Mm-hmm. So I think that was a big, Judi, you'll know this more than me, but I think that was a big impetus. And technology was another, how you do it. And some people, I think, were very intimidated by that too.
I want to add that the comment about your director came from Gretchen.
I know it was.
You want to make sure that no one thinks that somebody.
Yeah, right. Well, I think whatever you said that followed that up, I think, was like, oh yeah, and that's Gretchen.
So I want to ask each of you, and once again, I'll start with you, Lisa. What is the biggest fear that you've had to forge yourself through this past year in terms of your art? And what has this year, what's the biggest impact that the past year has had on you as an artist, beyond the obvious that we've all gone through?
My biggest fear was that you have to realize I work with the local groups, the little groups. I was scared to death for them that they were all going to go under. Mm-hmm. Because they're really, like, when you shoestring budgets and so many houses that were just going down because a lot of our groups are housed out of community centers. They don't have their own spot, and these places were just kicking them out left and right. So I was really afraid for the fact that we weren't going to come back from this, that it was going to be too much. But God always has a way. God always gets the last word. And we are coming back stronger. And what I think happened is, for me personally, I know that it made me get very real with myself. Mm-hmm. I had to ask myself a lot of questions. Why do you do this? What are you getting out of this? What is it you want from these situations? And it became almost like a laser sharp focus. I know why I do theater, because I love to do theater. I create because that is the gift I was given, and it brings me joy, and I love giving that joy to others. Mm-hmm. Got nothing to do. Money doesn't come into this. I'm telling you the honest truth. Money is nice, but it does not factor into this. I do this because this is who I am.
That's great. And what about you, Ken?
I was really worried especially when it all started, just not knowing what would be back, if things would be back. This year, I know a lot of TV shows are having shorter seasons. I'm just grateful that they're there, though, that they're filming, and that theater's coming back as well. Even though things are different, I'm just constantly grateful. But back when things were more uncertain, not that things are certain now, but when things were really uncertain, when we were just quarantining in our homes, I was seeing the worst case scenarios as I was lying in bed. Like, what if I can never be on a film set or a theater again? What if I can never be at a live show again? I'm not a musician, but I have a lot of friends who are. What if there can never be no more comedy shows, no more art museums? Because this is my life. I've never questioned doing anything else. And both as an audience member and as a participant, it felt like a nightmare. So I guess my concern was just the uncertainty of it all. And I feel optimistic. I feel hopeful, because things seem to be hopefully looking up. But, when you don't see the ends of the tunnel, it's just like there's that moment where you do feel like, what if what if there is no light?
Yeah. What if this is it?
Yeah. What if this is it?
Yeah.
Wow. Charlotte?
Well, I sort of had the same kind of concerns, but I have to say that the experience in Florida is much different than what you've experienced in New York. I mean, what you experienced in New York, both during the pandemic, which was horrific, because I had friends in New York, and for my book, Fight Back, Beat the Coronavirus, I interviewed a lot of people from New York that lost people for COVID. So, but here, in Florida, I always say it's for better or for worse. We've had, we've been fully reopened for a while, and it's just different when you drive around and you see restaurants open and things like that. I know my mindset here is much different when I talk to my friends in New York, and I mention, something about like, well, I was at karaoke and there's like this, and I go, because it's just a different mindset. You guys, in New York have been much more traumatized in a way.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's this weird dichotomy. It's just this different clashing worlds of opposites. But for myself, I had been singing in different places in Miami. I was about to become a host of an open mic. I'd started doing some auditioning. So when this happened, I was like, okay, is that it? I mean, I'm not a 23-year-old ingenue. I mean, I'm not gonna,
25.
Give up. Yeah. At 30 years old, it's different. I'm not be able to, So I'm really encouraged to see the way things are going, and I'm absolutely thrilled about Broadway. What I thought you were going to ask me, Richard, when you said you had a question to ask me, and you hoped what I said kind of went along. I thought you were going to ask me about ordering tickets and going back to Broadway is what I thought you were going to ask me. And I'm just like hopeful, like everybody else, crossing my fingers and just saying, yeah,
Can I jump in here?
And we're going to do it. And people do have to buy tickets and have the faith that New York will come back bigger and better than ever.
Absolutely.
Can I jump in here?
Yes.
I'm a huge history fanatic, and just to give us some hope out there, the plague of the 15 and 1600s, that is what gave way to the Renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a terrible time, and obviously much longer, and they didn't have the blessings of medicine that we do. But after that experience was over, the world opened up to the Renaissance and Shakespeare and art and culture. So I believe in the human experience, and it's going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
And the Spanish flu gave way to the Roaring Twenties.
That's right. And we're in the Roaring 20s again.
Right? So,
No, I can't believe this, but we are at the end of our show. But stick around for a few moments. I want to thank, first of all, Lisa Dascoli, Ken Holmes, Charlotte Libov. These are all people who are putting their art out, and it means the world to me that they all said yes to being here today. I know that all of you who joined us today, there are so many other places that you could have been. So the fact that you spent an hour with us this afternoon, and I'm sure I can speak with Dr. Bloom as well, it means the world to us. If you enjoyed today's show, please hit the like button on YouTube. Leave a comment if you can, and subscribe to Richard Skipper Celebrates. We are going to keep doing this show. Hopefully the new show will be called Creativity on the Other Side of COVID. We will be off for the next 2 weeks, and we will be back on the 27th, wrapping up the month. And then we will be back on June 3rd, and then we will be taking a little break. Before I'm going to give everyone else a chance to speak, I always end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list and go to the 6th name that pops up and reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private message, a phone call. Let those people know what they mean in our lives. I do what I do because I love celebrating artists and what they bring to the table. And I don't want to be morbid because I'm all about celebrating. But 2 people that I have celebrated in the past year, we lost them in the last month. Not because of COVID, but because of other extenuating circumstances. None of us know what tomorrow holds. So let's celebrate each other. Let's hold on to each other. Let's celebrate what people are bringing to the table. If somebody says or does something that you don't like or anything, is it really worth an argument? Is it worth getting in there and saying, I have to have the final word? Move on. Go to those people that will celebrate who you are. And we have to celebrate each other. That's my message for all of you today. And before we end, I'm going to go around and I'm going to give each of you a chance to have your final say. Anything that we talked about today that you want to expound upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish that we had, or just any message that you want to put out to anyone who's watching right now. And I'm going to start with you, Charlotte. And once again, happy birthday.
Thank you. I just want to give a shout out to the wonderful entertainers who have kept us going throughout the year. Billy Stritch, Jan Hampton Calloway. I'm looking at my list. Karen Mason. I didn't want to leave anybody out. The people like Lenny and Natasha, the Manhattan Association of Cabaret Artists, which I'm now a member of. But everyone that's been out there and that's grappled, like you, Richard, you especially, with the technology, because I've seen it, from the very beginning, what people were doing with technology, and I've seen it evolve, and it wasn't comfortable for anybody. My friend Ken Christofferson, who's now teaching me keyboard on Zoom, he did the quarantine cocktail hour every single night for 7 days a week. And people are just like working for tips if they, basically for nothing, and lost their income, and they did it anyway. And those are the people that I really want to celebrate. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for that. Ken?
I would love to just celebrate everybody who's finding creative ways to keep doing amazing things and being creative. People like you, Richard, people just who are doing shows like this and who are putting content out and spreading their art. Maybe some of these people are doing it in ways that they hadn't done before. I'd like to give a shout out to my co-creators of the web series, my dad, Burnham Holmes, and my friend Karen Clammy, and just various people from all around the country and all around the world who are finding ways to spread their messages, whatever those messages are, whatever those outlets are, and keep doing work and be kind in the process.
Thank you. Lisa?
I am just, I'm thankful for everything that came out of the last year. It sucked, but it really made me appreciate things. And I said, I will never take for granted wandering aimlessly in a mall, just window shopping. I will never take for granted calling up a friend and saying, let's get together for lunch. I will never take for granted hugging somebody. So that it tried to ruin us, but we won.
Amen. Thank you. Dr. Bloom, I'm going to give you the final word today.
Well,
thank you.
I'm always most concerned with people's mental health as a mental health professional. And theater is where we learn compassion. It's where we learn empathy. It's where we come in touch with our basic human emotions and really learn about other lives as we watch these other lives in front of us. So it's really important on a mental health level to get yourself back to the theater. Okay, so get out there, call a friend, make plans, buy tickets, right? Mm-hmm. If you're not somewhere where you can see live theater, although it's all over the country, go see a new movie that's coming out. James Bond, the new James Bond is coming out. Dune is coming out. There are lots of things we can get excited about and make plans for. And making plans will also help you get over the fear of getting back out there and being a part of the world again. One of the statistics I saw from the Actors Fund was not just that 76% have lost income, but 79% reported mental health problems. 79%. That's insane. Mm-hmm. So we have to do everything we can to promote ways to decrease the anxiety, decrease the depression, and find joy in living again.
Amen.
That's my message.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.